I think that gave me enough of a confidence boost in terms of, right, yeah, my skills as a developer, they can be monetized, it's mature enough. Personally, for me, I was, I think, 18 at the time, right? This was like kind of a big deal, right? I've never
Definitely.
traveled internationally before, and getting that call, then coming and telling to my mom that, hey, by the way, I'm gonna be going to Dubai. That was kind of a good experience. It was huge,
Right.
and yeah. I actually spent my 19th birthday in Dubai. I was there.
Okay.
So,
Right.
but if you want to be a solid engineer, I think it becomes very necessary to know these things. And this is the kind of stuff that is mostly taught at college, right? As a software engineer who's going to college, you will pick up on a lot of these things if you are at a good course. They will teach you all of this and more. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're self-learning, then you'll miss out on a lot of these. So I mean, it is good for you to do it on your own.
Welcome to the latest episode of In Your 20s podcast, where you become smarter by listening to the smartest people in their 20s. I'm your host, Aditya, and for today's episode, we talked about how college fails to teach us important things, how to learn things from your own, build projects, and what kind of projects to build exactly, the roadmap to get a remote job, and the future of Web3 in general, and much more interesting and mind-blogging conversations only for you. Join me in welcoming Prithvish Vaidya, who is an ex-software engineer at Bioeconomy, which is one of the best companies to work in Web3, and currently working as a lead engineer at Tacits. He has loads of experience in working remotely and freelancing. So do give it a thumbs up if you find this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Hi, Prithvish. Thank you so much for joining.
Hey, glad to be here.
Cool, cool. Um, I okay. Let's start from. I want to take you back to almost, I think, 2.5 years ago. So when I was in
Mhm.
um, 11th or 12th, I think it was in 12th. And one of my friend was, so your mom was one of my friend's class teacher. So
Okay.
so my friend shared a post, a Facebook post of her, and she had posted about that you getting a job at by economy,
Yeah.
and like she shared about how you know was introduced to programming and stuff. And like 2 years before, while I was reading that, I was really curious. Like I was like, how the heck he got a full-time job while just after passing 12th. That was really interesting.
Mm.
So I think we can start from there as your journey overall.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, when I got that job, that was more like the accumulation of my journey up until that point. That's not
Right.
really where I started, right? It's yeah, it's I mean, difficult to pinpoint, right? Exactly, but I think I've been coding ever since I was a little kid, right? So earliest memories I have is when I was 10 or 11 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandmom, she is a teacher, right? So she used to teach at a school in Ranchi, and that's where I used to visit her for my winter vacation.
Right.
Over there, she got me this senior book from her library, computer science, and then I was just flipping through the pages. She knew I was into computer science, but it's like I just like computers. Right? The
Mm-hmm.
first time I had access to a laptop, I was very small, and I just like to open up MS Paint, draw stuff, open MS Word, write stuff. Right, so that's how it got started. And I discovered HTML in that book for the very first time. Right? So that's the first time I caught a glimpse of what happens behind the scenes.
Right.
And stripping back a couple of the layers and seeing that you can actually affect change, you can make some of this stuff. So that was big for me, and it felt kind of addictive in a way, right? It's control in the sense you haven't achieved before. and that I think was the start. From then on, I just wanted to do more, figure out more stuff. Yeah. So then I ended up picking up a couple of more books. I think
Mm-hmm.
I picked up head first C because I'd heard of C as a language, and it turned out that C is not a very good language to start out for beginners. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, then I found head first Python, head first programming, and just kept dabbling, kept learning whatever I could. Uh, I think I forayed first into Arduino because that really interested me, right? Because
Right.
first you are doing the stuff, it appears on a screen, but with Arduino now you can make things move, make actual changes in the physical world, physical environment.
True.
So that felt like a huge step up for me. The thing with Arduino though is that components, peripherals, these motors, servers, they get very expensive. And
Mm.
right now in India, it's still a little more cheaper with more availability. But earlier we didn't really have that. Back then, Amazon in India only sold books. There was nothing else on Amazon, right?
Right.
So it was difficult to source these parts and buy stuff. It was all eBay and other some private companies, shady companies. In any case, yeah. So I thought, okay, how can I do the stuff that I'm doing with Arduino, but not make it cost money? And that's how I got into game development, where I can simulate the physical environment, but without spending any real money. And I spent some time in the Unity Unreal world, wrote a couple of games. I think the first couple of games I built were in Flash, right? Action script and Flash, and yeah, that was a whole different time. Then yeah, saw that Unity was a more mature, up and coming winner. Wrote a couple of Unity games, but it was, I mean, difficult, tedious to do all of it on your own, right? From music to art to sprites and all that work.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I kind of went back to my roots towards web development again towards the end of my thing, because so there was this project that I was working on, right? I was learning trigonometry in class, and trigonometry was used also in projectile motions and stuff, and it's very
Right.
commonly used in game development, right? So I wanted like a kind of a visualizer where an Angry Birds style catapult, like you can pull it back, you can adjust the angle and see how the trajectory would get affected. So simulating that definitely is a very fun way of doing things in Unity, but the more accessible way of doing that would be if you could do that in the browser itself using
Mm-hmm.
JavaScript, right? It would be much easier. You can play around, enter exact amounts. It felt like a more accessible, intuitive way of doing that. So from then on, I discovered the web platform as a whole and started doing some web development, basic websites design. So it went full circle. I started off building simple quizzes using HTML at the back of a computer science class 10 book, back into web development again. And
Right.
by this time, I had picked up enough information from here and there as my knowledge matured, and a couple of a little larger scale projects, right? So one of them was this online video conferencing platform called Manhive. It was specifically made for MUNs.
Okay.
So yeah, we were trying to simulate the entire MUN aspect of how an MUN would work, but online. Uh, this was pre-COVID, so we started with this pre-COVID because yeah, I just wanted to build something, right? And I was participating a couple of months, and I thought
Right.
instead of using paper and pencils to record all of this, it might be a little easier if there is sort of a software to control and manage the entire operation. And then COVID started happening. A couple of immune organizations started doing virtual months. Everyone was using Zoom, but of course
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
wasn't completely appropriate. uh, from there, yeah, so I decided that okay, maybe I could incorporate the virtual element as well, the distance element, and ended up building like a scalable video conferencing solution uh, from scratch in JavaScript, right? So that was, I think, my first pretty large scale ambitious project.
Mm-hmm.
And by this point in time, my skills are mature enough that I thought, okay, let's see what I can do with this, right? So I was in a couple of active developer discords, and people used to post jobs and stuff, looking for freelance developers to achieve a couple of tasks. Uh, and I just randomly applied to a couple. I built this. Uh, I think what was it? It was a front end to a Python script. So a front end
Okay.
application application to Python script that allowed you to restream YouTube videos, or let's say Twitch streams, from their platform into the SIA Skynet. The SIA is a blockchain, and Skynet is a, uh, I think, video conferencing platform, live streaming platform built on top of SIA. So just built Electron wrapper for that. That was the first front end, first freelance project I got started with. Then a couple other projects. I think that gave me enough of a confidence boost in terms of, right, yeah, my skills as a developer, they can be monetized. It's mature enough. But then, yeah, all of it slowed down. My, all the side progress into development slowed down very much so, because it was I think 11 and 12 and combined pressure of quota.
Right.
uh, 11 and 12, when I went into quota, uh, quota wasn't exactly the place that I expected it to be, right?
No one
So I
expects
was
that.
pretty, yeah, it was a pretty good student, right? I
Hmm.
got the NTS scholarship, I got
Right.
past PRM, and then I got the KVPI scholarship also in 11th, right? So all of these were there. KVPI especially helped me later on, because I could just kind of have a safety net, that okay, I have at least some college, right? So maybe I don't have to run the JE rat race. Maybe I can work on my other stuff. So in the meantime, while I was in 11, 12, the thing with quota was, so I really like subjects, right? I really like physics, I really like maths, chemistry not so much, but I like these subjects, and I really thought that people at quota I would meet would be into the subject. I would meet people fascinated by it, solving difficult problems and just learning more about it, right? Generally inspired by the world and inspired, wanting to learn more. That was not the case whatsoever in my experience. Like, most of the people I met and most of the instructions given by the teachers was just focus on the exam,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Physics is like, it's just the medium, it's just the means to an end, and the end being IIT.
Hmm.
It doesn't really matter. It could be a Russian grammar test, and people at Kota would be cramming Russian, the language, right? So that was a problem with Kota. There were a couple of times I remember where I wanted to dive deeper into subjects. I asked for clarifications to the teachers, right? Okay, how do we do this? How do we do that? And they are like, no, do not go there. Just focus on your paper. You'll end up wasting your time if you learn these other things, which to be fair makes sense. Right? The system is set up in that way,
Right.
so it's not their fault really. But yeah, I kind of got disillusioned, lost interest. I wanted to do my own thing, and I, by the time JE happened the first time around, JE means, I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work out, this isn't happening. So my two options were, I wait for the actual enrollment to start, JOSA to start, and I could get a college from my KVPY stuff. And in the meantime, maybe what I could do was do my computer science stuff, like, so look for jobs. I found a full-time gig at Libertas. That was the first full-time company I worked at, and they were building censorship-resistant audio podcasting, audio streaming. It was a pretty cool, pretty ambitious project, and I was brought on there. So that was the first full-time experience that I had. I was doing primarily full stack. Started off with front end mostly, but yeah, then progressed into full stack territory. And yeah, from there, after a couple of months, switched into economy, where I stayed for a while, and then switched again, and now I'm at Tactics.
Right. Truly amazing. Like experiencing and just exploring more about app dev and game dev. So what class were you in like that at that time?
Okay, so I think I was 11 years old, like I said, so pretty young, honestly, right? When I first started, right, with the HTML stuff. But I remember making Unity games up until, let's say, class 7, 8, right?
Oh my god.
And before then, I
Too
was also
early.
doing Flash stuff,
Right,
Arduino
right.
stuff, right?
Probably like your friends were playing COC and maybe I think COC was very popular that time. And
Oh
then
yeah,
you
yeah,
were,
yeah. I used to play
yeah.
COC as well. I used to love it. Was in
And you were
a
busy creating games for fun. That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in that
Um.
regard, I've been blessed as well. Like,
Mhm.
my friend circle are also really, really cool people. So one of my friends, Priyanshu, he got his first full-time job alongside with me at the same company, Libertas. We grew up together, we worked together,
Right.
and then when I got into Bikeonomy, he went and became the VP of marketing at EPNS.
Oh my
So
god.
that's pretty good.
Pretty good friends. Pretty good friends. I want to take the like flow towards learning, right? Like I definitely feel that you did most of the things by like self-taught. It was all self-taught, and
Mhm.
few maybe were some courses you took, but that even wasn't very common to a high school student, right? Who was starting in 9, 10th, like that. So
Hmm.
how would you explain or talk about skills in general? Like, what's your way of like learning a new skill and then moving forward with that and exploring new
Hmm.
opportunities?
Okay. So when it comes to programming, again, I really don't trust courses.
Right.
That's just a personal thing. I feel like I learn much better if I am, dropped into an ocean and I need to struggle and survive. Courses give you this streamlined kind of thing. It's limited, and many of the questions you want to ask, you can't really ask. I find it much better to just explore on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It's much better justified if these courses are free resources, so
Right.
like CS50, etc., excellent resources, of course. But paying for courses, unless it's something very specialized, I would recommend against. In
Mm-hmm.
general, the best way to get started into CS right now would be, in my opinion, CS50. It's Yeah, it's completely self-guided. You can There's plenty of jumping off points. So after you have learned something, you can build stuff on top of it,
Right.
and yeah, it covers your ground. It gets you everything that you need to get started as a general programmer. I would say, other than so, your main resources will probably be YouTube tutorials, books that you read, and random Medium articles that you find about how to do exactly what you need to do. So these are all good, but very frequently I find people who are stuck in this tutorial hell. Right, they are doing tutorial after
Right.
tutorial, following step by step, instructions after instructions, building Spotify clone, Discord clone, whatever. But when they need to actually build something on their own, they're completely lost,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they have
Right.
been following instructions the entire time. So
Right.
I would tell them that pick a problem that
Mm-hmm.
is close to you and go ahead and solve that. Right. So that is essentially at the crux of being a programmer, right? It's about being able to solve problems.
Right.
And if you choose a problem which is personal to you, you'll just be that much more motivated and inspired to go ahead and solve it. That was the case with the MUN thing that I was building at the start, which laid the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of my web journey.
Right.
And even before then, it's primarily coming down to that. So that will really help you grow and mature quite a bit. Build stuff, right? Go and build stuff. That's what you are, as a programmer, that's what you're supposed to be doing.
True. Right. Yeah. Relating to that, I had this first guest in the podcast. His name is Ansh. So what he said was, so his way of learning a new skill, he says, is like he takes 2 days for learning a new skill, like overall. So in the first day, he'll scrap out everything which is related to that particular, let's say he's learning a new language called Golang. So he'll scrap out everything related to that from the internet. He'll go through the documentation and everything within the first day. And in the second day, he will spend almost all of his time into building small projects, like maybe small projects, like 10, 15 projects, and then that will give him a hands-on experience of, okay, what is exactly important to build while we are building a particular thing. And
Mhm.
I think that is more relatable to what you said, even that just find a problem and then break them down into pieces and then just explore and learn things, so eventually the skills will be compounded overall.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going beyond the step of small projects, which is definitely
Mm-hmm.
a good starting out point. you
Yeah.
there's a lot of value in building a little large and non-trivial stuff, right?
Right.
There's so much more that you learn when things get a little messier, a little more complicated. It's like when you start a project, you would typically, if you know enough of the language, know how to do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good project if you're working at a company, right? That's a good project to undertake if you know exactly how you're gonna go do this.
Yeah.
But in terms of learning, a good project is something where you have no clue how to do anything.
Right.
It's like, okay, this is what I want to do. How do I do that?
Hmm.
So the journey from not knowing anything to evaluating multiple options to actually picking the most optimal solution, that is where most of the learning happens, according to me.
True. True. And certificates are not that required, right? As of now, like during this
No,
period.
no. As a developer, I think they're
Hmm.
entirely useless, I would say.
Hmm.
If you are, if you're into infrastructure or DevOps, then definitely AWS, GCP certifications, they are valuable.
Right.
But other than that, I don't think so. Yeah.
True. Agree. Um, let's come to like you mentioned, like you got a good you got good scores in KVPY, and then so you had a safety net of, like um, getting decent or good college maybe in India. But
Yeah.
there you are currently right now, studying at University of London. I think it's a
Yeah.
is it an online course or what?
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
a professional learning program.
Right.
It's designed to be remote compatible.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the option to switch to on campus, I think, after the second year, if you
Right.
want to. But
Yeah.
most people, they just continue doing it remotely, right? It's flexible, so you can do it alongside
Hmm.
your normal job.
So why did you choose that, like applying abroad and starting from a foreign university? I mean, definitely there is a huge pro that you get wider experience and exposure to learning a new type of learning. But if you had those backups, then why go for um, abroad colleges?
Right. So the backup I had, so with KVPY, I was getting, I think, ISA. So ISA,
Hmm.
Kolkata, ISA, Pune was an option for me. The reason I ended up not going would be so the curriculum there would be mostly pure science related, and again, I really love pure science. I wish I could dive deeper and learn a lot more, but I thought I am at a position. So when the JOSA and allocation etc. happened, I was already at a point in my career where I could see the opportunity for significant growth. Right,
Right.
I was just making so I mean I was making more than the average graduate from those colleges would make, I think, right, already.
True.
And then yeah, I could see that in a couple of years it's just going to grow exponentially.
Hmm.
uh, Dropping all of that and pursuing college over there, I mean, I would have to leave work, I would leave the kind of momentum that I had. And also I saw the opportunity with web3 and blockchain, right? So with
Hmm.
Libertas, I that was my first web3 position, and I could see that blockchain web3, it was kind of so not exactly at its infancy because the industry was being developed, there was infrastructure in place, it was being recognized, grants and incentives are in place, but in terms of maturity, it wasn't mature as a platform for actual users to step in and start using it. So I knew for a fact that in a couple of years, 4 5 years, it would get much more difficult to compete and yeah, get a good foothold in this space. So I was lucky to already have a door in, a step in the door, and I had a foothold, grip on the foothold. So I thought, yeah,
Right.
let's just carry along. Let's not give this up.
True. True. Definitely, like if you get an opportunity which is much better than the overall opportunities that you get, then why not go give it a shot, right? True.
Yeah.
um
And I would say college
hmm.
in general, I think college, no, I wouldn't say college is overrated because college is fun. You get to learn a lot of things in a chill environment, you make connections. But degrees are severely overrated. I really think
Hmm.
in this particular industry, you, if you have skills and if you have kind of a portfolio where you can demonstrate them, I really don't think you need a degree to get where you need to be.
True. Yeah. Let's move on to um getting the Like, I think Bioeconomy was your first actual job, or was it
Bygone was the second company. Yeah.
second? Okay. So how did you get started with as a big company in Bioeconomy? Because definitely I feel that that time, during the 2021 22, I think Bioeconomy was just booming. It was taking a shape, and then
Mhm.
you got a good opportunity out there. So how did you join, or how was the process like to for Bioeconomy?
Right. It's very boring, I would say. So I was already working at Libertas, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
and I had sufficient work experience under my belt, sufficient projects under my portfolio to prove that I know what my skill set is. I'm good at it. I'm adequately good at it. I found the job on Angel List. I think currently it's called Well Found. Uh, the position was there. I just applied. I heard back from them in a couple of days. We scheduled a call, and they gave me a take home assignment. It was
Mm-hmm.
essentially to build a demo UI for one of the projects, and yeah, I built that. They ended up liking it, so I was hired all within a week.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Like, hmm, interesting. And you stayed in Bioeconomy for about 7 8 months, I think.
7 8 months. Yeah.
Yeah. And why did you think for switching another company then? Like, Bioeconomy was a really good company, and maybe you could have gotten more exposure because it's in expanding phase right now, right?
Right. Yeah. So while yeah, after 7 to 8 months, I kind of had a product idea. So I wouldn't go very in depth over here, but it was essentially kind of a startup around Web3 and blockchain itself. So
Right.
I wanted to try and build it out, which is why I quit Bikenomics at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But soon after quitting, and like couple of months into development, I realized that yeah, competing with the existing players in this space and was going to be difficult. And the kind of angle that I took in terms of product market fit, so it could be better approached by a different angle that computers are already using in that space. Again, this was very cutting edge. When I quit, there was no competition, so it was like an entirely new field. But yeah, and this along with a couple of other challenges resulted in my solution not really taking off. I couldn't get to product phase, right? So it required
Mm-hmm.
funding, and yeah, investors just wanted to see a little more traction.
Right.
So that is why, yeah, that is why I ended up having to work again at Tasmc.
Got it. So I remember one of your friend, like he's a classmate of mine in the college. So he was
Okay.
sharing about, so he had seen a post of yours on Instagram, I think, that you had gone to Dubai and then you had posted something related to that. So take us to that. Like, I think, so how was your experience into traveling to Dubai? And then I think Bioeconomy's head office is also there. So
Yeah.
yeah, take us through that experience.
Right. So when I joined Bioeconomy, the HR they were telling me that yeah, it's like a crazy, amazing team, international and distributed, and they were planning to have offsites very soon. So I was coming in at a lucky time, and they held true to their end game, end promise. And yeah, we were flown out to Dubai. I think a couple of the core engineers, and the plan was that we were rewriting like a major part of a key product that they had, and we were gonna stay together for around 2 months or so because it's a distributed team, and we
Right.
thought that if we stick together for some time, it would result in faster work, and of course we'd get to explore and have fun in Dubai. So personally for me, I was, I think, 18 at the time, right? This was like kind of a big deal, right? I've never
Definitely.
traveled internationally before, and getting that call, then coming and telling to my mom that, hey, by the way, I'm gonna be going to Dubai. That was kind of a good experience. It was huge.
Right.
And yeah. I actually spent my 19th birthday in Dubai. I was there.
Okay.
So it was,
Right.
of course, like
That's
you can
so
imagine,
cool.
it was a crazy good
Mm-hmm.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So
nice. Like,
Economy had managed a really good workplace. It's really talented people, really driven towards innovation. It's a very good team.
mm-hmm. Great, great. So how much, like, is it fine if I ask you, like, what's the average salary we're like making at by economy? Like, just to give a round figure to the audience.
Uh, hmm. Okay. Average, I would say. I don't think I'm. Mm, okay. So let's just say it was something between 20 and 30.
20 and 30 USD.
No, 20 and 30 lakhs per annum.
Okay. That's a big deal. Like, how did you feel that time? Like, you're 18, you're earning so much, and I think earning that much at a very young age, that is, I think, about one or even less than 1% of the total Indian population earning their living. So, what
I
was
mean, yeah, you
that
could say so.
feeling?
Right? It was good, right? So again, it wasn't really entirely new to me because
Mm-hmm.
the freelance projects that I used to land earlier, pretty early on, they used to pay pretty well. Again, I
Right.
didn't really take on large projects that would take up months of time. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
take projects I could wrap up in a couple of days, and then maybe projects once a month or so. So yeah, I mean, I knew that if I wanted to do it full time, there would be enough money in this. So it wasn't entirely new to me. But when I first discovered that, okay, I had skills which people were willing to pay for, it
Right.
felt pretty good. Yeah, it's just, yeah,
Definitely.
another motivation to just
True,
keep
true.
working and building better solutions. Just the value that you can provide to people, just maximize that.
Absolutely. And yeah, I feel age is like, people should not be um, paid on the basis of their age, but rather the value they can bring on the table. Because
Oh yeah.
nowadays, yeah, because nowadays there are many internet, I wouldn't say influencers, or like more of an entrepreneur type, teenage entrepreneur. So, and they have great skills in marketing, great skills in designing and video editing at a very early age. So
Mhm.
the thing is that, and most of the time what happens is, when they talk with clients, and the clients feels that, oh, this is a kid, why to pay him so much? But definitely I feel that everyone should value, um, give focus to the value they are bringing on the table, rather than their age. True.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mm.
I think uh, another factor that was key in like being able to land these deals was I didn't really talk a lot to people when I was initially doing this freelance work. It was all over Discord, Reddit, like messages and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So hardly had any calls. It was mostly anonymous. Payments were made via Bitcoin and stuff. So yeah, it was like they hardly had any idea of who I was as a person. They only knew the kind of work
Mm-hmm.
I had done.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
True. So you have a lot of experience with the remote work, especially, right?
Mhm.
So take us to, because right now in India, what's happening is, so a year, or I think a year or two before, there was this Web3 phase, where everyone wanted to learn about Web3 um, development, Solidity, and stuff. And
Mhm.
a few months back, this whole AI thing came about, and
Mhm.
currently people are betting onto remote jobs, especially after COVID, right? Because
Mhm.
they felt that that's a better option, and even the pay is high mostly. So many Indians or even students who are just about to graduate are looking forward to getting a job, getting their first job as a remote job. So how would you suggest them, or how would you guide them through your experience to go forward with remote jobs?
Okay. Uh, I think in general, remote jobs are mostly good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's cons, of course. So up until I actually met up with the rest of the bioeconomy team at Dubai, all the work I had done was remote. So that was my first time working with my coworkers together. And I think there's definitely a lot of value to that, building personal connections with these people, because remotely it's not very easy to do that. And it kind of fosters a different environment of creativity, and yeah, it's just a different experience. So that is definitely valuable as well. I think a good way to sort that out from a company's perspective is keep stuff remote as much as you can, but also organize frequent meetups and offsites so everybody can meet, and people can build personal connections, and the kind of creativity, it never dies down, right? And from speaking to students perspective in terms of getting remote jobs, again, I'm not really very familiar with the placement scene. I don't know if placements give you remote jobs, but I of course never sat through placement. So the way I look for jobs is mostly AngelList, well found
Mm-hmm.
currently, a
Right.
very good platform. You get high quality jobs. You can use whatever filters you want. LinkedIn is pretty good. Again, the problem with LinkedIn, it's the easier it is to apply for a role, the more noise that you get in terms of
Mm.
applicants, right? Any
Right.
good role that you apply to is like 1,000 applicants. Impossible to get noticed, regardless
Mm.
of how good you are. So a good way to solve this would be, connect with the founders personally if you can. Message them, show them what you got, maybe write them a cover letter. Uh, Another way would be, search through your network. If you know people working somewhere, if you even, like, if you have contacts at the company, that's perfect. But even if you don't, if you just have industry related contacts, and this actually goes a huge way. I mean, I don't endorse it. I don't say, I'm not saying like this is it's good, like it's supposed to be like this. But knowing someone plays a very big role in terms of
Mm.
getting the right kind of job. Right?
Right.
That is just the way the industry is right now. So if you have friends, relatives, anybody, right, you can talk to and get a good word in. At least guarantee an interview, because after you get an interview, after you are sorted through the pile of CVs, then it's entirely up to you, right? Then you can impress them on your own with your skills, with your personality, whatever it is. But the very first step of getting a CV sorted through, that's difficult, and knowing someone gets that done very easily. So that helps a lot. AngelList, again, a lot of variety of jobs. Web3 specifically has a lot of Web3 related job boards. So maybe looking at that. Reddit used to be pretty good early on.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I think there's a lot of scams and stuff.
Right.
So would really recommend it wholeheartedly. And same
Mm-hmm.
goes for Discord as well. So there were a
Yeah.
couple of really good Discord servers where jobs and stuff were frequently posted, high quality ones. Again, I don't really know the current state of them. And
Right.
especially in Web3, I feel like many generalized servers have taken kind of a Web3 negative approach where they don't allow Web3 job postings, etc. I feel like that's a very, uh, misplaced anger or misplaced resentment at the issue. But yeah,
Mm.
what can we do?
Right. Another thing I wanted to ask was that when we talk about getting a remote job, so in all over YouTube there is this one thing that they say ki, you have to be good at open source, like contribute to repos, build connections with the maintainers, and then you have a much more higher chance of getting a remote job. So what do
Mhm.
you think about that?
So open source work is great, right? If you can get to the point where you are a sufficiently skilled engineer to understand a large code base, understand specific modules within this code base, and make changes to it. It just goes on to suggest that, yeah, you have really good skills. You are capable of working in a large organization, follow structure, and engage in discourse, engage in best practices, community guidelines, etc., etc. So a lot of these checklists essentially you pass right away as soon as the employer knows that you are engaged in open source work.
Hmm.
It goes double time if the company you want to work at has some open source repository, right? So
Right.
if with companies like Comma AI, etc., right? The primary way of getting a job there is to just make commits, right? Commit to the code base, make contributions, and then if you're good, you just get hired, right? So that makes sense. But I would also say that it can be very difficult to get into open source in a
Hmm.
meaningful way. Like you can get started easily, right? You can look
Yeah.
for good first issues. You can make, grammar changes and documentations and stuff. Again, very valid, very important work if you're contributing freely. But the step up from fixing typos to actually
Hmm.
committing contributing features into a large code base, it's very big, right? So I don't really think it's possible to do unless somebody guides you through and you have previous experience working in a large code base.
Hmm.
uh, so that's why I think it's so if you can do that, if you can get there, excellent, right? It's very good. But if you can't, if you feel like it's very intimidating for you, then it doesn't really matter. It's fine. There are multiple other ways to signify the same kind of skills. What you could do very easily would be just build a large project of your own, right? If
Right.
working in a large repository is difficult for you, understanding a large code base and contributing, then just build your own open source thing, non-trivial. Make it so that it actually solves a real problem that someone has. Again, do not build another Discord clone, do not build a Shopify clone, because sorry, Spotify clone, because nobody is going to use that, right? It's entirely useless. Build solutions to actual problems that people have, right? Or something cool that you really want to do. Right now I'm in the middle of building a NES simulator in Rust, right? So I thought, okay, I like games, retro games, and I really like the NES as a platform. I wanted to learn 6 to assembly, and I wanted to learn Rust, and combine all of those, I get a NES simulator. So it's a
Hmm.
fantastic project. I'm learning a lot.
Right.
uh, I think that is how you can get started. It can help you demonstrate a lot. And to add another value to it would be if you document your journey, right? If you start
Hmm.
writing about what you're learning, writing
Right.
about how you went about learning, approaching the problem, and one step beyond that would be to if you could make it more accessible, maybe create a tutorial video, make a devlog, right? Progress updates every day or every week whenever you add features, etc. So having this kind of experience on a portfolio, on a piece of paper, where you can direct people to, okay, this is how I work, this is the kind of work I'm capable of doing, it just makes it that much easier for employers and people to see that, okay, you are good.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Right.
like there's multiple ways of demonstrating your skills. Open source work is just one of them. It's a very good form, but again, it's not the only form.
True. True. Agree. Yeah, because like there is a lot of, I feel personally that there's a lot of hype around just open source and stuff, and not focusing on like actually building a project. And even
Mm.
on a college level, when we talk about building projects, it all comes down to just building clones of things. I mean, that is a good way of just learning what is required when we are putting a particular feature. But at the end of the day, this question needs to be there in our mind, that who is using this, who will use this clone, right? Or
Mm.
we can invest our time in just building something which is valuable and provides some amount of value in someone's problems.
Right.
True.
It could be your own problem. It could just be something that you find cool, right? Like with the Nest thing. I mean, you could argue that I'm just building a clone of other pre-existing emulators, right? But the point here is it's something cool. It's something end to end. It's something I can play
Hmm.
games on, right? So, yeah, it
Yeah.
just needs to be something like that. It should
True.
inspire you. You should have a little passion towards it.
Hmm. Another thing I wanted to ask was, when so currently, lot of, in whether you take it LinkedIn or Twitter, people have started following this 100 days of code are building in public type of thing, where they post each and every update about what they're building or what they're learning, right? And so I feel both of them has it has pros and cons, but what's your take on that? Because when I went through your profile, I found that you didn't do any of these things, but rather you
Yeah.
just focused on building your projects specifically and then connecting with people. So what's your take on that entire build in public thing?
Right. Yeah. So I think whenever you're writing, right, it's important that there is a delta.
Yep.
What you're writing actually, you're saying something. Right? It's okay. So someone who's coming reading, they'll take away something from whatever you have
Hmm.
written. If you're not doing that, then your writing is mostly meaningless. So with
Hmm.
challenges like
Yep.
these 100 days of code, etc., a lot of the pieces that you see, the written pieces, it's a lot of fluff, right? It's like if I go into chat gpt, be like, okay, ye likh do bhai, that's exactly what you would get, right? Just
Hmm.
litter it with a bunch of emojis and you have a standard LinkedIn post again. It's I mean, it might look like I'm just hitting at bigness for no reason. It's not really, right? I'm
Right.
saying that there, there's really better ways to utilize your time.
Hmm.
Maybe focus on something that was technically challenging to you when you wanted
Yep.
to understand it, and how you overcame that challenge. So how did you finally end up understanding what it was that you were missing at, right? Even though somebody who already understands it will read this, they will probably learn something and get something out of your article, right? So that is how you should approach writing. You shouldn't be writing for the sake of writing.
Hmm.
That
Right.
is what I feel about things.
Truly, like I had my previous guests also, they had this similar point of view on this thing, that see, if you are putting something, then there should be some values so that people can get from it. Otherwise it's just you're putting it for the sake of putting something
Mhm.
and wasting their time on in reading
Mhm.
that particular thing.
Exactly.
Truly. Let's come towards what should I say? Friends, right? So you mentioned you had really good friends, and I feel that they are one of the coolest friends you could have is like growing with you in your job roles and other things. Um, so what's what's your take on getting the importance of friends? And there is this concept also that um, people say that when you are growing at certain stage, at certain point, you'll find that you want to grow, but your friends are not in the same mindset. So you have to leave that particular level and then um, move on to something better and build better connections and again move forward with that. So what is your take on that? Ki, growing with friends, especially in the professional level.
Hmm. Uh, right. So I really don't think I'm the right person to ask, because I have had the same set of friends for like what, 7 8 years now, right? They haven't really changed. So I'm not
Right.
very experienced with making a lot of new friends, and haven't had a lot of chance to experiment with different friend circles, right? The one I had just stuck around. So maybe I got really lucky in that regard. But definitely it could be true that you can find that the your friends, people around you, they limit you, and you're sort of
Right.
growing beyond them. So I think you shouldn't be scared. If possible, you could try to elevate them as well, maybe bring them up with you. But if that's simply not an option, then you should not be afraid to move on and grow, right? Because growth is fundamental. And so in general, your friends play a very important role. If you have the right company, if you have the
Mm-hmm.
kind of friends where you all can grow together, learn
Yep.
together, and be better together, push each other, it's of course a much better environment to be in.
True. You mentioned like you have been entirely in this Web3 ecosystem as of now, right? So,
Mhm.
what is your expectations or maybe predictions for Web3 in the upcoming years? Because as of now, the market is pretty dry, and people have
Mhm.
like left hope on this thing. But um, yeah, what's your take on this?
So I think the market going dry, as you call it, is a very good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The hype bubble has kind of burst. A lot of empty air projects, right? They have depleted, and it's just a lot of fake value, fake hype that was blowing around. Projects with no delta that are really contributing nothing, they have disappeared because they haven't stuck around. They didn't survive, and we needed this kind of a cleansing of the Web3 space. So
Mm-hmm.
that's good. I think it will take more time to develop, but yeah. So Web3, I think, as a technology, is foundational. It's going to be fundamental in how the world operates in the future. Right? There's some very obvious advantages in having things be decentralized. Ownership of data, privacy, censorship resistance, uh, like the core founding principles that the entirety of Web3 is built on. I found them very close to me, personal to me. Right? I think I
Mm-hmm.
believe in the values of values of privacy, values of decentralization, and like no, singular entity is not being in control of such large things, right? Being in control is fine, right, as long as they are exercising good control. But being the single point of failure is simply unacceptable, and that
Right.
is how things have been and are for quite a while. It's simply not sufficient, right? A system like this cannot survive. So I'm a firm believer that many of these systems that we currently have in the Web2 world will be completely transitioned to Web3 in the coming years. Of course, finance is the obvious uh, thing that you would look at.
Hmm.
Uh, Again, when it comes to Web3, it's not entirely all of it has to be Ethereum or smart contracts or anything, right? It could just be IPFS, Filecoin. It could just be you can look at even torrents, BitTorrent, etc. as foundation much before the time being some sort of decentralized networks, right? So
Right.
they even they approach the spirit of Web3, and so on that basis you would see things like social networks, right, where currently you have a ton of censorship and a ton of centralization with Musk wreaking havoc on Twitter and people migrating away. It's yeah, all this is supposed to be changing. And again, with the new social systems emerging, with Lens protocol and like I think federated systems, the way we are building it right now, federated circles. I'm not very into the space, but Mastodon and I think Threads right now has approached the federated angle, and it's kind of supporting an interplay of networks, right? It's not
Hmm.
really Web3, it's not transactional, it's not immutable, but it is built in a way where systems and rings can be composed together, and there's no single
Right.
point of failure. So this, as a whole, I feel like is a win for Web3. When you see large organizations like Meta bending over and being like, okay, we
Hmm.
will take the federated approach. We will not try to keep everything under our control. Web3 has
Right.
already won, and if Web3 is taking over the world, right? And
Hmm.
when people are denying that, okay, yeah, Web3 bubbles faded, etc., it's not really the case, right? It's Web3 is being adopted where adoption was necessary. You can see large banks, large financial organizations and institutions, all of them have a Web3 department now. All of them are building on blockchains, building systems on blockchains. You look at Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan,
Hmm.
Goldman Sachs, all of them now even have operating infrastructure within the Web3 space. So yeah, Web3 is far from gone. Web3 is just shaping up to be the backbone of next generation of internet services.
Yeah. Yes. Like I was listening to a podcast recently. So it was they were talking about. So there were a bunch of VCs. They were talking about this winter. They call it, I think, um,
Mm. Crypto
winter.
winter.
Some, yeah, crypto winter. So and then they were talking that this was necessary because a market correction was definitely needed,
Mm-hmm.
and the market
Mm-hmm.
has as of now corrected a lot, because big valuations and, as you said, and most of the projects were just of no practical use. They were just coming up. um, yeah, I feel, yeah, even I'm much more bullish on specifically Web3.
Mm-hmm.
um, let's slow down a bit and um, go through your day in the life. What's your day in the life of um, remote software engineer, I would say. um,
Uh-huh. Sure.
a teen, yeah, 19-20 years.
Uh, it's I think there is not a lot of structure in my day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
I so I feel like I don't have many options about this. So many things I need to keep track of, and so I have ADHD, and it's
Okay.
very difficult to conform to a pattern. I think a pattern or a fixed routine would be good for me, but I do not have the capability of maintaining it.
Right.
So it mostly is just things happening until I get too exhausted to deal with them and fall asleep. That is literally how my day looks like. And in general, couple of things are there which are scheduled, and most of my other days built around. So I have a morning call at my company which is at 10 a.m. and I think an evening call which is at 6 p.m. And in the middle, whenever a coworker needs my help, or if we need further discussions to design a system or verify a system, or like for whatever reasons people need to connect, they're free to connect with each other between these times, and even after, if we have informed beforehand. And other than that, most of my time I just utilize on walking. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's a boring day.
Right.
uh, so when I'm not working, I'm again probably still working on some personal project, or any other thing that I can get my hands on, or maybe I'm learning about this new library that came out, or new build system, new tooling, whatever new projects that I in this space. And if not for any of these, then I'm probably spending time with friends and family. So that's yeah, that's largely it. It's pretty boring.
No,
One thing
it's
I wish I
good.
could
It's
make
good.
more time for, right, which
Hmm.
I feel like is such a big regret of mine, is gaming.
Hmm.
Growing up, I had this shitty laptop, right, which could hardly run any games, and
Hmm.
I would try to push it beyond its limits, upgraded its RAM, had a janky, external fan setup to cool it. It was everything I could do to make games run on it, right? And
Hmm.
I completed even some AAA titles with a lot of difficulty, and a bunch of retro games. Right? So I had a bunch of fun. And after I made some money, after I have my 3070 PC, Oculus, you can see PS5, right?
Oh.
I don't know when was the last time I touched these stuff. Right?
Hmm.
Starfield is out. I want to play the goddamn game, right? I just
Hmm.
don't have the time. It's
Right.
that's probably the saddest part about my life.
Truly, truly.
Yeah.
And what about college? Like, do you have to attend daily classes online or what?
No, there's no daily classes online. There's
Yeah.
every semester is 6 months, and a semester typically has two checkpoints. It can either be examinations, so both are exams. It could be one of them is an assignment and one of them is an exam, or it could be entirely assignment based. So you have a final assignment and you have a midpoint check in for that assignment. And yeah, it's if as long as you can uh, pass through your assignments, as long as they are you get a pass on that, you're free to do anything you want. So there's a schedule that they have. There's video formats, courses, lectures. There's frequent webinars where you can talk to your professors and
Mm-hmm.
clear any doubts that you have. But as such, nothing is mandatory. So as long
Right.
as you can pass all your exams and assignments, you're good to go.
So it's pretty much like a college, but not a college, also.
So this is typically how you would see professional uh, degree programs be, arranged, where they expect you to be busy with other things in your life, right?
Right.
So yeah.
Agree. And don't you feel missed out on the fact that, oh, if I could have joined a normal college in India, or like the physical aspect of going to
Mhm.
college and experiencing building, like enjoying with friends, don't you miss out on that?
So I mean, I think yeah. There's bits and pieces of that I really miss,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I hear stories from my friends about the kind of fun that they have. But then again, because my friends are in college, I kind of can go out, hang out with them and their college friends, and kind of get the same vibe that I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Dubai, I feel like the amount of fun I had in Dubai was like college, 3 years of college condensed into 2 months. I feel like I did everything that I
Right.
wanted to. And even though I sit and think, right, how would that be? I feel like, yeah, no, I really wouldn't change anything in my past. Yeah, I'm happy where I am.
Right. So you wouldn't trade your this online course with the offline experience.
No, no, thank you.
Why would you? True, true, true. Agree. So coming back to, let's say you had to start all over again. I mean, like, even if you, like, you have maxed out all your potentials, I feel, of just getting the good use of your time even from the childhood. But let's say if you had to start all over again, and you
Mhm.
are a college student,
Mhm.
how would you go forward with learning new skills, building connections, and probably become what you are currently, where you are currently, and or even much more than this?
Right. Uh, okay, so I'll be speaking mostly under the assumption that your chosen field is this software
Yeah.
and maybe around Web3. If it's something different, it'll look very different. And again, primarily, I feel like you should be doing whatever you're good at and whatever you enjoy doing, because then the journey is that much easier. So yeah, working under those assumptions right now, like I said, the best way to get started is CS50, hands down. Right, run through CS50 as fast as you can. Uh, if you do not have a lot of computer science background, or if you're very new to these kind of things, right, it depends also on how much, maybe let's say, math you have taken, abstract math, lambda calculus, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have any experience within any of these things, it is going to take a while for things to finally click and make sense for you. So until then, just keep spamming it, right? Keep spamming your brain with the concepts of CS50. Whatever you don't understand, uh, rewatch, reread, try to rebuild, recreate, until and like as long as it takes for you for it to finally click, right? Maybe go talk to people. There's Discord servers, there's Reddit forums, right, where people are more than happy to explain and help you out wherever you're stuck. So yeah, just get through CS50. Make sure you're understanding each and every single aspect of CS50. Once you're done with that, the most current easiest way to land a job, I think, would be web development.
Right.
You don't need a lot of background to get there. It might not be the most interesting or most in-depth field of work, but it's the easiest. So there's a bunch of YouTube video tutorials you could see, where people start from scratch, essentially explain how HTML, CSS work together, and help you build alongside. Right. So don't touch anything else, just use HTML and CSS, no libraries, nothing else, no JavaScript, and build a couple of websites. Follow along these tutorials, build these websites, look at your favorite websites, try to recreate them. Maybe not entirely, maybe just understand how. a page is built, right? So you should be able to arrive at a point where you can see a page and you can immediately think that, okay, these are the different components. This is how I would lay them out. This is how responsiveness would work. So that would take a little bit of time. So that gives you your HTML and CSS base. I like to work with Tailwind. So I think the natural next step introduction would be learning Tailwind and
Right.
learning JavaScript. Right. So JavaScript, I don't really know the best way to learn JavaScript right now. I think, yeah, it's definitely important to learn JavaScript and TypeScript from scratch without introduction of any libraries or framework, because a lot of modern libraries assume in-depth knowledge of JavaScript, right? And if you start with the
Mm-hmm.
framework, it's like don't know where JavaScript ends and where the framework starts. So
True.
your fundamental is very shallow. So a book I really liked when I was learning JavaScript was Eloquent JavaScript. It's difficult to get through, and it's old, right? It follows the old conventions, of pre ES5, so prototypes and stuff. But the in-depth knowledge I got from that book was really good. Other than
Eloquent
that, there's
knowledge. What was the name? Eloquent
Eloquent JavaScript.
JavaScript. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Right.
the name of the book. Uh, Other than that, there is the so that's a little outdated right now. I wouldn't recommend people go there. But I mean, good for a read maybe, but don't make it a Bible. There is the You Don't Know JS series of books, which is out
Mm,
currently, I think. And it is organized into multiple volumes. It's open source. You can view it on GitHub and read it online. So that is a very good resource.
right.
You learn in depth the language, you know exactly how it works. uh, a lot of the concepts that people struggle with initially, like closures and, let's say, async await, promises, asynchronous JavaScript in general, a lot of that is very clearly and cleverly illustrated through examples in these books. So now you're at a point where you have sufficient JavaScript knowledge and you have sufficient HTML and CSS knowledge. uh, Build out some classics, right? Maybe build Snake. You should, right, by now know enough to build Snake. Build, let's say, what else you can make? You can make basic Battleship. Are you aware of Battleship? So like
Yeah,
trade and
yeah.
you play. So
Hmm.
make Battleship. Easy to make games. You'll very quickly approach the problem solving aspect of it also. Okay, so this is the last thing, I can break it down into small pieces, I can build it. After you're done with that, I think now would be an appropriate time to introduce React and TypeScript into the equation.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know the best resource currently available for learning React, but you could go to the React website, take the tours. React documentations are very good. They'll, I think, last time I checked, it was a tic-tac-toe game. So you build a tic-tac-toe game from scratch, and they introduce all the relevant pieces to you. You can look at the TypeScript handbook as well. Uh, and this will provide you with enough information. I think TypeScript is very easy to learn, as at least initially, uh, if you know enough of JavaScript, right? It's not really that difficult. um, Definitely, the advanced bits might take a little bit of time and tinkering to learn, but you can get started very easily. So after you're done with the React tic-tac-toe kind of thing, and you're done with your okay, so in the middle, there's another problem within the JavaScript ecosystem where it is very difficult to get acquainted with the build ecosystem, the build pipeline, build tooling, right? You have
Hmm.
ES build, you have Git, you have. So do not go with Create React app. That's a common pitfall. I think the documentation is also updated currently.
Right.
Uh, and it takes a little while to get used to it, right? Webpack configs, etc. The big, I mean, do not fall into the rabbit hole. This is at least initially not going to be very important. You do not have to understand what every single flag or what every single line in the config file means. It's completely fine to ignore it. Right, I made the mistake of diving deep and being all like, okay, I need to understand Webpack and all of it. Yep, no, focus on what matters right now, which is the actual thing that you're learning and building. So after you have a basic grasp of React, maybe look at a couple of React project ideas. The quintessential thing that people try to do at this point is create a blog, because
Hmm.
it illustrates things very easily. So the problem is you don't know backend, so you can't build a backend for your blog. That's completely fine. Use memory, like browser memory, as your backend, and just store things there, store your posts there. You refresh the page, everything is gone. That's fine. Maybe even use a local storage or something to make sure your page is processed. That'd be a good project right now. After you're done with that, I think you can move on to a little larger projects. What I would really like to do at this point would be learn a little bit of backend, right? So Node.js, Express. I think if you're good at TypeScript, all of this should come very easily to you. It is also very important to get acquainted with networking basics, as in if you enter a URL on your Chrome bar, press enter. What happens? What does the computer do? How does the
Right.
page end up on your tab? So getting at least a basic grasp of these concepts make you a very good web developer. Uh, it's very important. If you know that, then the rest of the backend stuff should come very easily to you, especially for smaller things. So you don't have to figure much out. I would recommend building a multiplayer tic-tac-toe game at this point. It's a little bit ambitious and a little bit ambitious, but make your backend compatible with it. So two clients can talk together. So you can create a new room, get a room code, and then use that code to join a room, and the two players can connect and play tic-tac-toe in multiplayer. So that's a very good starting off project. You can publish it, you can write about it. It will, it's just good in general. By now, from what you have learned, it is, I guess, sufficient to land you a job, at least, more than an intern, maybe even a junior level position.
Right.
Now, I guess the sky's the limit, right? If you want to, explore more into backend, you could explore type. I think there is. Nest.js is a good framework right now. I would bet on Nest.js. NEST, the backend framework, not NEXT. Next is also nice. Removes the need for a backend, so you kind of can just learn Next and never have to build a backend. But I still think it's important to have some foundational backend knowledge, Node.js, V8 runtime, etc. And keep thinking of more problems to solve, more projects you could build. You could pick up multitudes of different things right now. So you could maybe learn Electron, or maybe you could jump into React Native, right? So once you are at this position, you can just pick and choose the problem that you want to solve.
Right.
So that is how I would approach learning all of these things. Then I would compile all my projects, and if I have written anything about them into my blog, which I have built for myself, and then put it up as a portfolio, and then use this portfolio along with my CV to apply for jobs. Again, if it's difficult to find full-time jobs, get freelance jobs. Freelance jobs, I have not had a lot of work with freelancer or Upwork or Fiverr, etc., because it's very difficult to get started, right? If you are
True.
new on this platform, it's really difficult. So for these things, it's good if you can access Discord communities, or if you can find people along in your community who need this kind of work done. you know your local shop needs an app or a website or something. That's excellent. Nothing is better than that. So you could just do that. But if not, your Discord, etc., and if you can make Fiverr, freelancer, etc. work, then that's good. But that's not your only option. The more projects that you do freelance, the more kind of non-trivial applications you can talk about in your portfolio, in your CV, that you actually built something that was valuable to someone, valuable enough that they paid you for it, right? So now you can approach the job market with experience under your belt. You're not new to the job market, and I think this should be sufficient to land you a full-time job.
Great. Like, I can't express ki how detailed it was, because like it truly opened my mind also, because like I had some roadmaps which were confusing. Like, I'm currently stuck with JavaScript, but then you mentioned ki just move on from this to this to this to this. Don't just get stuck into one thing, and
Mhm.
keep building some projects with
Mhm.
that. That is really good. So you would prefer starting off with web dev, right, rather than other things?
Entirely depends on what your end goal is, right? Let's say you want to work as a game developer, then doing web dev has no use to you.
Mm-hmm.
You could start with Unity, makes it easy, but then
Yes.
if you're in a professional game studio, you wouldn't be using Unity. You'd
Yeah.
probably be using C++ and writing games from scratch, right? So
Right.
that's an entirely different mindset you'll have to explore. uh, I can't give you the pathway for that, but if your end goal is just finding a software engineering job and making money in this field, then web dev is the way to go, I feel like. Also, I think it's very important for the self-learned developer to also uh, polish and refine their knowledge, because
Hmm.
you as a self-developer engineer, you only learn applications, right? Whatever application based education that you need in order to do your job, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the fundamentals and foundations are still missing in many self-learned engineers out there. So there is this website called Teach Yourself CS, I think it's called. I might have to look it up, but it has like a listing for each and every single subject.
Hmm.
So starting from software architecture to databases to concurrent systems to, let's say, compilers and languages in general, and even programming, right? So programming is much beyond just writing code, right? Uh,
Yes.
Stuff like Lisp, right? Once you really do those kind of things, it's an entirely different academic mindset, almost, I would say. Some of it might feel pretentious and unnecessary at the start, if your end goal is just making money. But if you want to be a solid engineer, I think it becomes very necessary to know these things. And this is the kind of stuff that is mostly taught at college, right? As a software engineer who is going to college, you will pick up on a lot of these things if you are at a good course. They will teach you all of this and more. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're self-learning, then you'll miss out on a lot of these. So I mean, it is good for you to do it on your own. Learning from first principles. Yeah, that is also very important.
Yeah. Adding a question onto this, like as a college students, what we are taught is, firstly, learn a language, be good at DSA, understand concept of oops and all, and then maybe try out competitive programming, and then practice aptitude, and then there is you sit for the placement, and if you are good enough, you get the job. But
Yeah.
so what is your thinking, or what do you think that this craze around DSA which is there among college students, is it really
Yeah.
necessary to land a job?
No, no. So again, DSA is like one of 5 or 6 different things that I would say make a good engineer. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It is important to have basic information about the runtimes and complexities of basic algorithms, and
Yes.
if you want to store some data, what structure you should use. But it's like, if you know what is a tree, if you know what is a hash map, if you know when to use one, fine, move on, right? The exact type of data set or data structure that you need in any given scenario uh, is probably not going to be something that unless you have memorized, let's say, 300, 400 data structures, uh, which is very unnecessary, I feel like, because as an engineer, your job is to know how to find the right solution, not knowing the right solution at all times.
Right.
So I feel like this again, there is I mean, it's difficult to assess a candidate, especially if you're picking from unexperienced people, right, who don't have work experience to show. uh, so it is very difficult to design interview tests.
Hmm.
One common approach that the industry is now using is take home assignments, but
Yes.
those are also 5 6 hours long, and uh, they have their own cons. So
Time
DSA still is a
consuming.
very, yeah, DSA still is a pretty valid test, but it has sadly resulted in another rat race. It's like almost
True.
Jification of the job market. You have coaching institutes and boot
Yeah.
camps, and it's just people selling courses, and
So
I
much.
it's very sad. It's like the exact thing that I saw at Kota, right, where people are in
Hmm.
it not for the subject but for getting into IT. It's the same
Hmm.
thing. People are learning DSA not because they like computer science, but because they want a job. It's yeah. what can I say, right?
Crazy.
So
Yeah.
if you want to be a good engineer, it's important to know basic DSA, but only as much as you need to get your job done. Right? You need to understand what kinds of data structures are there, so that when you find yourself in a position where your code isn't working optimally, or you need to make it faster, you know where to look for optimization. You know where to look. Okay, maybe within the large existing literature of computer science and academia,
Mm-hmm.
and various data structures and optimization kind of things, what kind of thing I might be able to find which helps me with this. Right? So then you start looking, and then you pick up something, and then you use it. You don't really need to know all 300 things at once.
Yep.
So, like a good example of this that I didn't know before I got into Ethereum was Bloom filters, right? Or let's say Merkle trees. I had no experience with these data structures, but I knew what were trees, and I knew what
Mm-hmm.
were hash maps. I knew basic probability, so I could pick it up, and I could realize why these data structures are necessary where they're being used, and that is all you really need. Along with that, I feel like the focus should be on building scalable systems. So
Mm.
a very good book for that is DDIA, data designing data intensive applications. I think
Yes.
it's a quintessential read these days, because most of the systems you'll work on will be distributed systems. Um, then there is basic compiler design, right? Understanding how a compiler or an interpreter works, how programming languages work in general.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this book called Crafting Interpreters that goes in depth and teaches you a lot about it. Then operating systems, you need to know, how your operating system works. So there's OSTEP, which is a classic. The three Z pieces is called. Then there is system architecture, right? Computer architecture from bare
Mm-hmm.
bones level. So how does a CPU work? How does RAM work? Like how do random, bits of sand come together and build your computer? It's
Mm.
very interesting. I think that is the most interesting place I like to be at. An excellent book I love in this space, and there's also a course around this. It's called NAND to Tetris, building a computer from first principle. Right. So you start with a NAND gate, logic gate, and you
Mm.
piece NAND gate together, build a computer out of it, build an operating system, build a programming language, then write Tetris and then run it. Right
Okay.
on a computer that it's absolutely insane. It's like the most fruitful learning thing that you can do for your own.
Mm-hmm.
Then, if you want to go a little bit more advanced, you can look at CSAP, which is Computer Science, a Programmer's Perspective. Anyway, so these are the various fields which are there. Data science and sorry, data structures and algorithms is just like one corner of the large pie,
Mm.
right?
Right.
Your focus should be becoming a good engineer. That's what I think.
True. So you would prefer giving more time to development and then just focus on getting the basics clear, like as you mentioned, key what are trees, um, what are linked list and all of like that.
Mhm.
Agree. And like while you were talking, you spilled out so much books names, like, and I feel that you must have definitely focused or prioritized books, learning from books more than videos or any courses. So would you recommend someone else to do the same, or what's it like, either video courses or books, what's better?
So I think it comes down to personal preference, a lot
Yeah.
of it. Uh, Also depends on how uh, deep the subject is that you're trying to understand, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
cannot understand, let's say, one data structure, if you cannot understand how a Merkle tree works, right, and reading about it doesn't really help, watch a video about it. It will make things much clearer. But if you are learning in depth about a field, uh, if you're trying to learn a language, especially for me, find that books work very well when the subject matter is very wide.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's very subjective. I like books, uh, and again, I ended up learning at a time when YouTube wasn't very accessible. I grew up on
Mm,
2 GB
yeah.
internet a month, right? So I just had to get used to books.
Mhm. Great. It's so cool. And yeah, I think we are at the end of the episode. Any like tips or hacks you want to give to the viewers or listeners watching this from your
Hmm.
experience?
So yeah, it's important to like what you do and do what you like. I think it's
True.
that's the most profound piece of advice I can think of, without making it too cliche. I mean,
Mm.
even this is too cliche. Research maybe ikigai, the Japanese concept, if you've heard of it.
Mm. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's pretty interesting in terms of philosophy,
Mm.
right? And I think a lot of people, especially around this age, get very focused on what their peers are doing, what their classmates are doing. And the important thing to remember is that, again, it feels weird to give sage advice. I'm 20, right? But
Right.
life is long, right? It's fine.
True.
If people aren't, if you feel like, kuch nahi ho raha hai mera, oh my God, I'm about to graduate, chill. It's okay. You'll
Mm.
get there. Yeah, so it really isn't all that bad. That's
Yeah.
important to remember. It's never all that bad.
Great. Yeah, I think all of this, like when we were in 11, 12, we were pushed towards this entire rat race of getting a good college. And
Mm,
then when we are in college, we are again put up into this rat race of getting a good job, and especially a high paying job. And there's so much pressure that a lot of us feel just burnt out, and um, it also affects them in learning new things, out of
mhm,
interest, because back in their mind they are like, I want a job, but
mm,
maybe the interest they have are not related to that particular job. So
mm,
definitely, as you said, that it's okay to just calm down and think of what your interests are even after you're graduated
mhm.
and you don't have a job.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
cool. So um, finally, let's close this off. Thank you so much, Baya, for joining. It was great talking to you. And final things which I learned from you was, again, a lot of the guests that I've spoken to, every time I'm just overwhelmed with this thing that you just have to pursue what's your interest is,
Mm,
and not just look around and what others are doing, and
mm,
double down on your interest,
mm,
and again, do some practical things, build projects, and most importantly, connect with people.
mm.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bhaiya, for joining.
Thanks, Aditya.
uh,
This was a genuine
right.
pleasure. Great conversation.